Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Herring and we are down to a final table in the 2019 World Series of Poker Main Event. The final 9 players are all guaranteed a payout of $1 million, but of course each player has their eye on that massive first place prize of $10 million. These final 9 have maneuvered their way through a massive field of 8,569 players to play on poker's biggest stage. Today, the players have a well-deserved day off. There's no play today, but they will return on Sunday to play from 9 down to 6 on live TV starting at 7 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN2. Yesterday's play lasted 12 hours as the field shrank from 35 all the way down to 9. It was Robert Heidorn who was eliminated in 10th place when he shoved his last 9 big blinds in middle position with King-Queen of Hearts and was called by Alex Livingston and his pocket 8s. The 9-8-7 flop gave Livingston a set. The turn was a jack, giving Heidorn some hope, but the 5 on the river sealed the deal, and Heidorn was the final table bubble boy. Remember, at the WSOP, 10-handed play is considered the unofficial final table, and 9-handed is considered the official final table. Coming into the final 9 as a massive chip leader is German-based EPT Reg Hossein Ensan. He won the EPT Prague Main Event back in 2015 and has over 2.6 million in live tournament cashes. He has 177 million in chips, which is almost double the second biggest stack heading into tomorrow. Ensan came into yesterday second in chips and managed to keep the momentum. He won 2 large pots, including a 118 million chip pot off Timothy Sue. Sue 3-bet pre-flop and Ensan called. The flop was Queen of Hearts, 10 of Spades, 7 of Diamonds. Sue let out and Ensan called. The turn was a 7 of Spades and both players checked. The river was a 6 of Hearts and Sue let out for 16 million. And after about a minute, Ensan raised to 45 million. Sue tanked for 5 minutes and eventually made the call. Ensan showed pocket 10s for a full house and Sue mucked. If we learned anything from watching Ensan yesterday, it's that he knows how to get full value out of his hands. Garry Gates comes to the final table with the second biggest stack of 99.3 million in chips. Gates is one of our very own. That's right, Garry used to work here at PokerNews and now works for PokerStars as a live events and VIP services. Gates accumulated a lot of his chips when he eliminated Henry Liu in 11th place. Garry 3-bet ace-jack offsuit to 7 million at big blind 800,000. Henry Liu called with king-jack. The flop was jack 10-7. Garry bet 4.5 million and Liu called. The turn was a 6, Gates checked, and Henry Liu bet out 7.8 million. Garry check raised all in, which sent Liu into the tank for almost 5 minutes. Eventually he called, but was drawing slim. The 8 on the river sent Liu to the rail and gave Garry Gates a 66 million chip pot. This will be Gates' 4th time cashing the World Series of Poker Main Event, but the guaranteed $1 million payout is slightly better than his next best WSOP cash of $47,000. Ensan and Gates really have a dominating lead over the rest of the pack with 177 and 99 big blinds going into Sunday, where blinds are 500,000, 1 million with a 1 million ante. However, with the slow, deep structure of the WSOP Main Event, anything can happen. Zhen Cai comes into the final table 3rd in chips with 60.6 million. Cai is primarily a pot limit Omaha cash game player, but has a poker coach who knows a thing or two about deep main event runs. His friend, Tony Milos, who you may remember as the 2nd place finisher in last year's WSOP Main Event, has been on the rail cheering on Cai the past few days. If you've been following the WSOP coverage, you may know Cai as the player who knocked out Richard Seymour. It was actually a 3-way all-in with Cai, Seymour, and Anuja Garwal. Cai had pocket queens and turned a 3rd queen, which sent Seymour to the rail. Kevin Maahs will come to the final table 4th in chips with 43 million. The Chicago native played smaller tournaments in the Midwest, but this year he decided to come to play Vegas and play his first World Series of Poker Main Event. Maahs told PokerNews that he likes short stack poker more, which is why he max late registered the main event. He bought in on day 2 and bagged a hefty stack his first day of play. However, we saw Maahs get very short a few times yesterday, but he kept managing to chip up or double up. In fact, when the tournament was down to just 2 tables, Maahs managed to double up when he was down to just 19 big blinds. Milos Skrbic has shoved ace-queen pre and Maahs called with aces. Aces held and Maahs got his much-needed double-up. Speaking of, Milos Skrbic heads into tomorrow 7th in chips with just over 23 big blinds. The Serbian pro recently made the switch from playing high-stakes cash games to playing tournaments. That seems to have been a very successful switch, as Skrbic has over 1.45 million in cashes just in 2018. It was December of last year where he got one of his biggest cashes, losing heads up to Dylan Linde in the $10,000 WPT 5-Diamond Poker Classic. It's now guaranteed Skrbic will have back-to-back years of over $1 million in cashes. Alex Livingston will head into the final table 5th in chips with 37.8 million. This isn't Livingston's first deep run in the main event. Livingston finished 13th in the 2013 WSOP main event. We will see if the experience of a deep main event run will give the Canadian poker pro an edge at the final table. He was short in chips 10-handed, but as I mentioned earlier, he picked up a much-needed pot at the very end of last night when he eliminated Robert Heidorn in 10th place. 6th in chips is well-known high-stakes poker pro Dario Sammartino. The Italian has over 8 million in live tournament cashes and is considered one of the best players in the world. However, even the best players in the world can make mistakes. Yesterday, with 11 players left, Sammartino opened and then saw Nick Marchington shove. Sammartino asked for a count, and the dealer told him Marchington's stack was just over 20 big blinds. Sammartino called, but the dealer had actually miscounted, and Marchington actually shoved for closer to 30 big blinds. Sammartino had pocket tens and called before the count was correctly relayed to him. 2 tournament supervisors came over and ruled that the call would stand. Sammartino protested and called the hand sick, but he kept his composure after Marchington's pocket queens held up, and he got that double up. Despite that double up late in the day yesterday, Nick Marchington comes to the final table last in chips with 20 big blinds. This is the first time Marchington is playing the main event because he is just 21 years old. This will be his second live tournament cash. His first cash came last month in the $800 8-handed deep stack, where he finished in 19th place for just over $12,000. Now his second ever cash promises to be at least $1 million. If Marchington beats out the 8 other remaining players, he would be the youngest player to win the WSOP main event. He would be just a few months younger, in fact, than Joe Cotta when he won the main event back in 2009. Timothy Sue is second to last in chips, due in part to that huge pot against Ensan's full house. At just 25 years old, Sue considers himself a mostly recreational poker player who learned by casually playing at his dormitory at Northeastern University. Sue is a software engineer who almost managed to be on the receiving end of the most talked about hand from this WSOP main event. It was Sue, as you may know, who busted Sam Greenwood from the main event. Sue raised with 10-9 of clubs. Greenwood re-raised with pocket aces. Sue called. The flop was Queen-Jack 4. Greenwood bet almost half the pot on the flop. Sue called. A jack on the turn paired the board, and Greenwood led again, and Sue shoved all in. Sue had Greenwood covered, so Greenwood would have to call for his tournament life. He shook his head and called. He saw he was a huge favorite with aces versus an open-ended straight draw, but the king on the river gave Sue the straight, and Greenwood was eliminated. Sue also busted well-known poker players Igor Kurganov and Bryce Yockey on his way to the final table. Congratulations to all the players on making it this far. Of course, we will have the main event news as it happens right here on PokerNews.com.